Hello, dear warrior. They've sent storms. They've sent betrayals dressed as friends. They've thrown silence, guilt, loss, even demons disguised as desires. But you absorbed it all and kept walking. So one day, hell pulled your name, sat down at the table, lit the black candles, started the ritual, and then something stopped. It wasn't fear, not the kind they know. It was recognition. They saw something in your file that made the room cold, not ice cold, existentially cold. Because it wasn't just pain you'd survived. It was pain you weaponized. You didn't just endure darkness. You danced in it, spoke to it, tamed it. So the devil looked up, saw the storm that forged you, and said, no, not that one. Not this time. Not because he couldn't reach you, but because he knew you'd already been through worse than hell, and you didn't flinch. See, most people think evil is loud, think it storms in with flames, claws, and curses. But the real evil, it watches first. It studies, silently. And when it studied you, it didn't see a victim. It saw a mirror, a reflection of chaos, but controlled chaos. Someone who'd been dismantled, piece by piece, only to rebuild themselves using the very shadows meant to break them. You didn't pray to be saved. You didn't beg for mercy. You opened the door to your own demons and whispered, you either get in line or get erased. That's when the devil knew. This wasn't about punishment anymore. This was about respect, about recognizing when you've met something you can't corrupt because it's already made peace with its own darkness. You're not haunted by darkness anymore. You own the lease. And hell, it knocks now. But it never enters. Picture this. A table deep beneath the fire, lined with souls that cracked at the sound of their own name. Spirits, broken like glass, filed away in hell's archives. Then comes your file. Black cover, red seal, stamped, unopened, by choice. They didn't just hesitate. They argued, not this one. He doesn't respond like the others. We tried guilt. He turned it into fuel. We sent temptation. He laughed in its face. We threw his past at him. He built an empire out of it. They opened it anyway. Inside, no fear, no guilt, no broken patterns to exploit. Only one note, handwritten in jagged red. Already been here, left stronger. That was the moment it clicked. You weren't afraid of hell. Hell was afraid you'd come back, because you don't walk like someone who survived darkness. You walk like someone who became it. And now, they've closed the case. Not because it's over, but because they lost. They say demons never quit, that once they mark you, they chase you for life. But then you came along, and the chase didn't go how they expected. They whispered your name in rituals, you answered with silence. They tried to send nightmares, but you'd already lived worse, awake. They threw heartbreak at you, and you grew sharper. They shattered your trust, and you used the pieces to carve a crown. So when the demon assigned to you came back, he didn't brag, he didn't mock. He came back quiet, eyes wide, voice low. He whispered, we picked the wrong one. This soul doesn't break. It doesn't burn. They laughed at first, until the next demon said the same, then the next, and the next, until finally, no one volunteered. No one wanted to touch you. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped being the target and became the test. And hell, it doesn't test gods. You ever seen shadows step back? Not run, not disappear. Step back. Like they saw something in you that made them forget who they serve. That's what started happening. Because the usual rules, they didn't apply to you. You didn't fight darkness. You absorbed it. You didn't deny pain. You drank it like morning coffee. And now, even the shadows are asking for distance. They know what you are. Not light, not dark, but the silence in between. The silence that doesn't need noise to be terrifying. The presence that doesn't need a weapon because it is one. When they looked at you, they didn't see a soul to torment. They saw a mirror, a reflection of every failure they've had. A reminder that some people can't be touched. Not because they're protected, but because they've been through worse and never asked for help. They say everyone has a breaking point, a line you're not supposed to cross, a pain that rewrites who you are. But you crossed it. You didn't rewrite. You erased. You burned the script they gave you, tore out the pages of weakness, of guilt, of regret, and wrote nothing in their place. Nothing. Because even the words were too small for what you became. You didn't bend. You didn't break. You reformed. You became something that can't be described in human language. Not a survivor. Not a fighter. Not a winner. Something older. Something colder. Something calmer. And the devil? He saw it. He saw it before anyone else did. And that's why he backed down. Not because he couldn't beat you, but because he realized he'd be fighting something with no end. You don't fade. You don't retreat. You multiply. The more pain they throw at you, the more versions of you appear, and everyone is harder to destroy. Pain used to love messing with you, used to creep into your chest at night, whispering doubts in your ear like lullabies, used to flood your mind with what-ifs and not-enoughs while the world applauded everyone else. But now, pain's exhausted. It's tried everything. Shame, loneliness, failure, loss. You didn't just survive it. You turned it into armor. That's what broke the system. They designed you to collapse under pressure, to fall in line, to beg for relief. But instead, you built a throne in the fire, and pain became your background music. You walk different now, not because you're arrogant, but because you've seen the bottom and laughed at it. That's why the devil stays out of your way. He knows what happens when you run out of fear. You become free. And a soul that's free terrifies everyone still wearing chains. They thought fire would finish you, that if they cranked the heat high enough, if they threw enough chaos at your soul, you'd melt like the rest. But the fire didn't break you. It crowned you. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You just stared back with calm eyes and let the inferno introduce you to your final form. That's the problem with their kind. They keep forgetting something important. Some people weren't made in peace. They were forged in the middle of a breakdown. You're one of those. You don't walk like someone who escaped the flames. You walk like someone who owns them now. Now when the storms come, when the walls shake, when the lights flicker, it's not a warning anymore. It's your entrance music. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to prove your worth. Your energy walks in first and the room adjusts itself. They used to whisper about you, laugh in corners, mock your pain, spin stories about how you'd never make it. But now, they whisper for a different reason. Not because you're weak, but because they're scared your shadow might be listening. The same mouths that once mocked you now check the room twice before speaking your name. You didn't get louder. You didn't get revenge. You just kept moving. And now they're stuck, watching you from a distance, wondering how you flipped the script without saying a word. You made your silence louder than their screams. You made your pain more powerful than their applause. They thought they were watching your downfall. Turns out they were just watching the intro. That's why even the devil backed away. He's not afraid of noise. He's afraid of silence that knows what it's doing. The kind of silence that's seen too much, lost too much, and still stayed standing. They thought you'd stay down, that the damage was permanent, that the silence meant surrender. But what they didn't understand was, you weren't done. You were reloading. You weren't hiding. You were evolving. You weren't broken. You were being redesigned by the pain. So when you walked back in, not limping, not crying, but calm, clean, untouchable, the universe itself flinched. Because nothing is more terrifying than someone who healed without help. Someone who built themselves from nothing but scars and silence. Now the energy has shifted. You don't chase. You don't explain. You exist. And that's enough to tilt every room off balance. They wanted to erase you. Now they're studying your blueprint. Even the devil, even fate, even the whispers behind locked doors, they all pause when your name comes up. They had a system, a formula, a list of steps that were supposed to contain you, break you, silence you, bury you. But then you showed up and didn't play by a single rule. You didn't argue with their lies. You didn't fight back with fists. You let the results do the violence. And when the storm came, when it was your name on their lips, you didn't blink. You didn't bark like they expected. You smiled. And that smile rewrote the outcome. Because it wasn't confidence. It was confirmation. That this world wasn't ready. Not for your wrath. Not for your rebirth. Not for the new order you carried in your silence. They trained to defeat men, but you were never just a man. You were a lesson, wrapped in flesh. You were the moment karma showed up in person, and now they understand. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about power. It was about redefinition of who's untouchable, of what fear looks like, of what happens when a soul decides it's done being prey. You know what scares them the most. It's not your strength. It's not your scars. It's that you don't flinch anymore. They tried pain. You tanked it. They tried silence. You thrived in it. They tried chaos. You built a kingdom out of it. You weren't supposed to survive. You weren't supposed to evolve. And you definitely weren't supposed to become this version of you. But here you are. Calm like midnight. Sharp like betrayal. Quiet like vengeance. You walk in and the room shifts. Not because you're loud, but because your silence carries weight. They've dealt with fighters. They've dealt with rebels. But they've never faced a soul like yours. A soul that's seen the void, shook hands with the abyss, and came back with fire in its breath. You don't react. You don't explain. You just exist fully, dangerously, unapologetically. And that unbothered fire, that's what keeps them up at night. Because monsters can be killed. But what do you do with something that already walked through hell and never left a note? You used to explain yourself. Why you were quiet. Why you didn't fit in. Why your energy didn't match theirs. You thought they just needed understanding, but they didn't want to understand. They wanted to control, so you stopped talking. You stopped justifying. And in that silence, something changed. They started watching. They started trembling. Because the moment you stopped explaining, they realized they never had you figured out. That silence, it was evolution. It was the death of approval. It was the birth of fear. Because now you move without warning. Now you smile without needing a reason. Now you carry chaos without raising your voice. And they can't decode it. They can't label it. They can only whisper about it. You became their cautionary tale. The one they tell others to watch out for. Not because of what you say, but because of what they feel when you enter the room. The temperature drops. The ego recoils. And every mask starts to crack. You don't play the game anymore. You are the game now. They used to laugh, mock the silence, dismiss the presence, treat you like a ghost in a world full of noise. But now they flinch at the thought of you. Not because of what you've done, but because of what they can't predict. You're not violent. You're not loud. You're not even trying. And that's exactly what terrifies them. You became unreadable, untouchable, unshakable. You walk in like a glitch in their simulation, like something off in a world that needs control. You don't follow the script. You rip the script and write your own chaos in the margins. They don't know if you'll sit down or burn the table. They don't know if you'll laugh or strike. They don't know if this calm is peace or the eye of a storm. And when people don't know what you'll do, they fill the silence with fear. You gave them nothing. No clues, no patterns, no warnings. And that void, that's where their nightmares live now. You became the story they tell behind locked doors. Not because you destroyed anything, but because you could. This was never about rebellion, never about revenge, never about rage. This was surgery, surgical, deliberate, precise. You didn't show up to scream. You showed up to remind the system that it can be outsmarted, outlived, outfeared. They built rules to control men. They built systems to break spirits. But what they didn't expect was someone who walked through hell and came back with blueprints of how to burn it all. You studied. You waited. You let them laugh, doubt, and dismiss. And when the time came, you didn't react. You redesigned the battlefield. And by the time they realized it, they were standing on your turf, playing by rules they never understood. That's not power. That's not chaos. That's legacy. A legacy carved in silence, written in fear, sealed in respect. They'll never admit out loud, because deep down, behind all the whispers, they know you're not the villain. You're the answer. Warrior. This wasn't about proving them wrong. This was about proving to yourself that you were right all along. And now, you don't need to fight. You just need to exist. Because when your energy enters the room, even the devil hesitates.
तेरा होठों की लाली, हाथों में कंगन तेरे कानों में है बाली, आंखों का काजल तेरा होठों की है लाली, हाथों में कंगन तेरे कानों में है बाली।
एक नजर देखा हुआ तुझसे प्यार, सोया ना पूरी रात चढ़ गया बुखार, तुझको पटाने में किया हद पार, तेरे चक्कर में खाया पापा से मार। लड़की तू बांग्लादेशी बम, मैं लड़का बंगाल का किसी से कम, दम है मेरा बात तो सुन, देसी रम है गिलास तो ढूंढ, सुन 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 सुन, लड़की तू ब्यूटीफुल कर गई चुल, देसी में लड़का दिखने में कूल, तेरे हॉटनेस ने मुझको जला के है रखा, मैंने पहले से फायर ब्रिगेड मंगवा के है रखा, धीरे धीरे मेरा वाइब आने लगा, पर पोस्ट किया सॉन्ग मेरा छाने लगा, सबके मुंह में मेरा गाना आने लगा, आने लगा, आने लगा।
लड़का मैं बेंगल वाला, लड़की तू बांग्लादेशी, घूमेंगे कलकत्ता में जैसे हो पीला टैक्सी। लड़का मैं बेंगल वाला, लड़की तू बांग्लादेशी, घूमेंगे कलकत्ता में जैसे हो पीला टैक्सी।
कलकत्ता का मिष्टी है खाने में टेस्टी है, दो जन का दोस्ती यहाँ पर टेस्टी है, आइसक्रीम नहीं जो पिघल जाएगा, शादी कर लिया अब किधर जाएगा, जिधर जाएगा उधर जाएगी, घूमने जाओगे पुचका खाएगी, तीखा पुचका मुझे तेरा टेस्टी लगे, तुझसे अच्छा मुझे तेरा बेस्टी लगे, हाय 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 नखरा कमाल, तेरा देसी है बवाल, मुझसे प्यार करती है मत कर सवाल, कातिल हसीना मैं पूरा कमीना, पीछा ना छोड़ो कर दो मुश्किल जीना, टीना मीना चंपा पारो दिल मेरा गया अयो मारे, अरे 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 छोड़ो मेरा कान मुझे दर्द कर रहा, शिमला के वादी में बर्फ पड़ रहा, बिना हेलमेट के आगे मामा डर रहा, जुर्माना भरा तुझसे प्यार करके, शादी किया तुझसे घर वालों से लड़के,